Alright, so this is a pretty intimate session. So probably you want to highlight which questions that you find particularly challenging. Okay, maybe I can customize and focus or address the questions that you found challenging.
C.
Okay, so
I don't know how to do it all.
Okay, question C.
Then E.
Elephant.
Yeah.
C and E,
And like a bit of F. F is just I got no time to finish.
but can do, right?
Like
So if time is not a constraint, can do
yeah.
lah. Okay, so I wouldn't consider it's like those that I give you ample time but you can't do that kind. that are the questions that we are concerned. Okay, so I will focus more on questions C and E. Okay,
Maybe B also.
B for boy, is it?
Yeah.
Boy, yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, so we have B, C, E. Anytime that hey, if you have questions for me, you probably can leave it right at the end, or if you feel like just asking, you just go ahead lah, because this is a 1-to-1 session. Okay, so all right, so let's quickly look through the answers together. Probably I will drop the answer key onto. Would you like to have a copy of I'll actually upload the answer key by the end of the week lah. Okay, but I will probably put it here. Yeah. Okay, so you can access it on your end. Okay, I already uploaded the answer key right onto the Zoom chat. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so don't be too concerned about the answer key. Focus on how you derive the answer. Okay, so our whole emphasis, we are not concerned about what answer you have, but okay, the thought process behind getting your answer. So just now you mentioned that there were certain challenges. Okay, so maybe we start with question. Let's go through the individual challenges that you face. So what were the challenges that you encountered for question B?
For B, I couldn't find I'm not sure of the demand factors.
Right, so unsure. Okay, I'll just write it down. Sure. Okay, question C.
I didn't understand the question at all.
Okay. Okay, question E.
E. Oh, I know what to write. As in, I know it's efficiency, but I don't know how to explain all the efficiencies.
The elaboration?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks. All right. Okay, so let's quickly screen through the extract. Okay, we can see that this extract is pretty fragmented. Okay, why am I saying that? Okay, we realize that every extract gives you a different theme, right? So we have shopping, okay, retail climate. Okay, we have Singapore changing retail climate. Okay, so back to your question on question C. Okay, this is probably one telltale sign. Okay, that you need to focus about. Okay, we can see that your rent has actually went down. Okay, so later on we will probably see how we can further play around with this. Okay, what are the factors that contribute to a fall in rent? Okay, you can see that the next two paragraphs, there are the supporting factors to illustrate that. Okay, so you can see that extract 2, it is pretty much related to the PED question. I'm not sure. Okay, this is the one. Okay, Tiffany and Co, right? Yeah, Tiffany and Co extract is here. Okay, so PED question is actually illustrated in extract 2. Okay, extract 3 and extract 4 are related. Okay, so you can see that that the third segment we are looking at government intervention. So I just want you to be concerned, when there is government intervention being mentioned, it has to be tied in nicely with objectives. You can see here, right? Okay, so for objectives, I always coach my first year students, and my year 2 students who haven't learned macro yet. Okay, I don't think any of you have learned macro yet, or maybe just starting. So the only 2 objectives that you need to know are what are the 2 objectives? When it starts with the alphabet E.
E?
E, yes. Okay, there are 2 objectives that starts with E. Want to make a guess?
Efficiency.
Yeah, exactly, efficiency. And Exactly. Okay, so make sure, okay, these two things into your head. These two E's are the most important. And we move on to macro, then we'll add on to 4 new friends. Okay, call it 4 macro objectives. Okay, so H1 students will learn 3. Okay, so today we don't need any of these macro objectives. Okay, but okay, we shall see. Okay, because down here there is another S down here, you see. Right, so there are at least 2 objectives that need to be met. But we can actually identify one really clearly here. Okay, so you can actually look here. Okay, the need for government intervention. You can see that there is technological progress. Okay, look out for these keywords here. Do you see that? Okay, so spillover. You see? Private market would not supply adequate types of research. So we can what can we conclude from these few keywords? Okay, the nature of R&D, okay, is likely to have spillover effects. And not only that, it's normally underproduced. Okay, so the only deduction that we can work backwards is what? Okay, what is the kind of inefficiency that's present here? Underproduction, spillover effects. Allocative inefficiency. And to be more specific, okay, the production of R&D or promotion of R&D results in what kind of allocative inefficiency? Starting with the word P.
Productive.
Alright, okay, I believe you should have learned this before, right? So it's called positive
and negative.
Positive externalities.
Oh.
Right? Okay, so focus on the keyword. You see spillover effect to the nearby clusters. You see that? Okay, that these are the third-party benefits that are enjoyed by others. And you realize that, okay, this is not adequately produced. Underproduction. So you can actually make a deduction that there's positive externalities being present. See, underinvestment. You see all these keywords? So, okay, when you encounter such terms, okay, you have to learn to string them together like a story. Okay, look out for all the keywords here, like under here. Okay, it will tell that there's a very strong case for positive externality here. So the correct approach here is positive externalities, right? You got to explain, okay, using the positive externalities framework. Okay, so just now when I was taking a quick glimpse through your script, unfortunately I don't see those lah. But strangely, the part F wise, okay, you illustrate this concept. Part E you didn't. You know? Part F, so suddenly I see the correct diagrams coming out. So I also don't know. Maybe you got the order wrong. Yeah. Okay, so part F and part E are related. Okay, do you see that? Alright, so another good telltale sign about related questions. So let's say if you cannot deduce, you can always work backwards. So you can see that question F already gave you a very strong hint that there is underinvestment. Right? Okay, and you realize that there's allocative inefficiency in the R&D market. Okay, so all the more you can work backwards that there's allocative inefficiency. And to be more specific, there's positive externalities. Okay, so part F is actually testing about what? Okay, policies, right? Okay, to address the underproduction or underinvestment. Okay, so with this, we have actually complete the bulk of this question. At least or almost half of the marks actually goes to market failure. Okay, so whether you pass or fail, okay, depends on okay, your grasp of the market failure concepts. Okay, the rest are actually short answer questions. Okay, so with that, okay, do you have a green color pen to do correction?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so we'll hop over to the answer directly. Okay, so I always encourage my students to do the corrections at the side. Okay, so that you can revise, okay, when I return to you. Right? And if your hand has nothing to do, then do correction. Okay, so let's quickly run through. Okay, question B, C, and E is the focus. So I'll quickly breeze through the questions that don't need our attention. Okay, so question A. Okay, identify the main features of the change in retail sales. Alright, so the keyword here is change. Okay, so you must identify any increase or decrease. Okay, so you can see that, okay, with the exception of departmental stores, motor vehicles, and medical goods and toiletries, okay, everything else experienced a fall. Okay, truth to be told, such questions are very, very rare. Okay, normally the opening question will be a trend question. Okay, they don't normally start off with an identify question. Okay, so okay, if you don't get this right, you think it's perfectly okay. Okay, and if you have any alternate interpretation that you'd like to check with me, you can check with me anytime, or you want to collate and ask me right at the end also can. Okay, so you can identify the second feature is either or. You can illustrate that the biggest fall, okay, comes from petrol services, or the biggest rise comes from motor vehicle. Either of these works. Okay. So we are going to move on to your focus question, right? Demand factors. Okay, so every time when I go through demand concepts, demand factors, okay, it will help if you have the book. Do you have the book with you?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so okay, we will flip to the first few page called, where is it? Yeah, so these are all your demand factors. Okay, anything that you're not sure about the book, you ask me. Why? Because I'm the author. Okay. All right. So, okay, we are supposed to look out for Egypt factors here, right? But how are we going to identify from the extract? So, which of the Egypt factors do you think are present from the extract?
Um.
Remember, this is a case study. Okay, you have to find evidence from extract 1. Must be from extract 1.
The taste and preference.
Taste and preference could be. All right. Okay, so we have taste and preference. What else? That was the other one.
Actually, I don't know the other one.
Okay, so we have Egypt, right? But you managed to identify tea only. All right. Taste and preference. So now let's look at what we have. All right, so factor 1, I skip first. Factor 1 is not Egypt. Okay, factor 1 is a factor outside of Egypt. Okay, but from time to time, it will come back. Okay, so especially when we learn exchange rate. Okay, this year when we learn macro, we'll be learning exchange rate. Okay, so exchange rate is a demand factor. Okay, I'm going to skip this one first. Okay, taste and preference is correct. So you have to state clearly there's an increase or fall in taste and preference. So in this case, it's a fall in taste and preference, right? Okay, you can see that the growth in retail scene in region countries like Bangkok, South Korea, and Taiwan actually draw Singapore shoppers away. Okay, due to the more distinctive culture. Okay, so taste and preference. Okay, another factor that you can infer, okay, is factor G, interrelated goods. Okay, so how can we illustrate that? Okay, so interrelated goods, we're looking at complements or substitute. So we can identify other tourism spots as a substitute, right? So we have to identify that there is going to be other countries are going to be more affordable first. Okay, so in order to justify that substitution works here. You can see that, okay, other countries are more affordable, could be. Okay, so when price of other countries, okay, let's call this other countries goes down, okay, this will lead to a fall in demand for Singapore shopping. Then in that case, okay, we can draw these two together. Okay, this is a substitution effect. Okay, so this is actually pushing because the extract did not specifically mention there's a fall in price. You can only infer that all these countries are going to be more affordable or seemingly fall in price. Which brings me back to factor 1. Factor 1 is is one of the best factor to exchange rate. Okay, so long story short, I will not spend a lot of time to illustrate exchange rate. I will illustrate this when I go through exchange rate somewhere in term 2 or term 3. Okay, so the whole idea behind exchange rate is Sing dollar becoming more expensive. Okay, your exchange rate actually appreciate. Okay, and it will result in the destination being more costly to other foreign visitors. Right? Therefore, there will be a fall in demand. Okay, so exchange rate is a exchange rate. It's not a price factor. Okay, so therefore it is a shift in your demand. Okay, so I'm glad that you actually get one of the factor right. Good try. Okay, so the catch here is to use the correct factor. Okay, make sure you use the correct keyword. Change in taste and preference, substitution, and explaining. Okay, what is the significance of that? Okay, if you bring in taste and preference, you must bring in other countries being a more attractive destination. Then there will be a fall in demand. Okay.
Okay.
So have I addressed the concern in question B?
Yes.
Yeah. So the whole idea is identify Egypt factors. Okay. So most of the time you can get Egypt quite directly. So only this kind of question that you can deviate by coming out at exchange rate. What's exchange rate? Yeah, is this how it's tested? But you still can fall back to Egypt from time to time. Alright. Okay, so I'm going to move on to question C. Okay, explain the expected changes in rand by N2016. Alright. So this question requires you to be sensitive to the data. Okay, so the data actually mentioned that rand has declined. Right? Okay, so a fall in rand, okay, remember, okay, a fall in rand is your price of your rental properties. It's the same as price. Okay, just that in this case, it's a rented property. That's why we call it fall in rand. Okay, these two are used interchangeably. So now, okay, what framework do we need to use here? Okay, be it a fall in price or fall in rand. What do you think is required here? Whenever you realize that there's a question mark in your script, you have to ask yourself, okay, what framework do I need? The earlier question, okay, it was a very clear-cut demand framework, right? So what do you think, what framework is required here? I'll give you a hint. Okay, rand, okay, is another form of price. Okay, so if you are interested to find out changes in your price or rent, okay, what framework do we usually use?
The pricing thing.
Pricing mechanism.
Yeah.
Okay, which consists of which two curves?
The demand and supply.
Exactly. Okay, so when I ask you framework, okay, demand and supply framework. Okay, it's the correct approach. So I'll be asking my students these kind of questions. Okay, so you always have to guess. Okay, what framework do we need? So a fall in rand is likely to be due to what? Okay, likewise, we can use this interchangeably, right? Okay, a fall in price or fall in rand is the same. Okay, so what could have caused a fall in price? Okay, what must happen to your demand? Demand for rented properties. Decrease, right? So demand of rented properties must go down in order for your rent to go down. Agreed? What about supply?
Increase.
Good. So now, okay, after establishing the framework, after identifying the requirements of the question, can we find from the extract whether there is fall in demand or increase in supply?
The fall in demand, the occupancy rate.
Okay, so fall in occupancy rate. So we can see that, okay, because of lesser foot traffic, right? Okay, is there a need to open a shop?
No.
No need, right? Okay, so we can link it to what? Okay, the derived demand for rental space is going to go down. Okay, so the keyword here is not a pure demand. Okay, to be more specific, it's a derived demand. Okay, because shops are used, okay, to produce or to cater to tourists. Later on, we'll talk more about that. Okay, but good. Okay, what about the supply factor? Now let's look at the third paragraph. Okay, are there any things that we can find from the third paragraph that illustrates an increase in supply?
Oh, the new areas.
Right, so there are actually bigger shopping malls or bigger places being completed, right? okay, we can see that, okay, this is a, okay, increase in number of sellers in the market, web picks. Okay, earlier on was what? Let me take a look. Okay, earlier on was occupancy rate, right? Okay, occupancy rate, I would maybe put population. Makes sense, right? So you can see that it will systematically fall under the concept of Egypt, okay, demand factors, okay, or web picks, supply factors. And I'm aware that your school also uses these two acronyms, right? Do they?
We don't use Egypt, but we use web picks.
Okay, so be familiar with Egypt lah. Okay, if not, it will be some other acronym, huh? Okay, so whenever I use Egypt and web picks, okay, these are two concepts that I'm referring to. All right, so okay, so let's work backwards. We have worked backwards already. So ultimately, it's demand and supply framework, okay, and getting the demand and supply factors right. So the missing key is to the first step, okay, to unlock the question is to identify that price must go down first, or rent must go down, fall in rent. Okay, so we can see that retailers are facing challenging times due to fall in retail sales volume and affect profitability. Okay, and therefore retailers are going to shut down, right? Okay, because of lower profitability. Okay, so there will be a fall in derived demand for shopping spaces. Okay, because of a fall in demand for goods and services by tourists. Then no need lah. Okay, just close shop. Okay, your retail space is a derived demand. Okay, and this will lead to a surplus and a downward pressure on rent. Okay, so I want to emphasize these three are keywords. I forgot to bold this. Okay, so when you are illustrating price adjustment process, or rather when you see the concept of, I don't know whether your school uses this concept of PAP. Okay, whenever you see PAP, it means that it's price adjustment process. Okay, so you're supposed to illustrate how does your rent goes down. Okay, how does your price goes down? Okay, your price goes down, okay, only after there's an adjustment. Meaning to say there must be a direction of your demand. Okay, so if your demand fall to the left, it must lead to a surplus before it will converge downwards. Okay, and a downward pressure on your price or your rent. Okay, so these two keywords are exceptionally crucial. Okay, they will form the complete cycle of your PAP. Okay, so normally we don't use rent. Okay, we use price. Does your school use PAP? Do you see this term? Right, yeah. So if you ever see this, you got to be careful. It's not it's not government. Okay, it is a specific terminology that we use. Okay, likewise, okay, glad that we identified the supply factor. Okay, this is web picks, number of sellers, right? You can see that the completion of all this project is going to increase the overall supply. Okay, so this will result in a surplus. I forgot to bold this. Okay, and a downward pressure on price or rent. Okay, so you have to state this in steps. State the direction of your supply curve. State whether it results in a shortage or surplus. A shortage will always exert upward pressure. Surplus will exert a downward pressure. Okay, and that's it. Okay, especially for a short answer question, don't go excessive. Okay, don't need to explain the full adjustment. Hey, you realize that I'm going a bit fast, okay? Because lecture test I have very short time to cover a lot of things. Okay, so for the viewers out there, okay, if there's anything that I covered too fast, you can always stay back and ask me. If not, you can always book a consult. Okay, can ask me on a one-to-one basis. Right? So yes, have I addressed question C?
Yes.
Right. So the concept that we need is demand and supply, right? Same as B, but it's a more extensive one. All right, so question D. Okay, discuss the usefulness to a retailer such as Tiffany & Co. who aims to maximize profit. So how do you approach this question?
I talk about total revenue.
Okay.
And the PD less than 1, PD more than 1 thing.
Okay. So if it is less than 1, what do you do?
I just said that the retailer should price their goods with PD less than 1.
How do you price? So price up or price down? So you identify that a retailer like Tiffany and Co. So let's say if their good is PED inelastic, what should they do to the price? There's only 2 directions to the price, right?
Increase price.
Increase price. Okay, so we're not obviously it's not going to be status quo. Okay, so it's going to be increase or fall. Alright, so listen carefully. Okay, this question, okay, the framework for this question is a thesis and antithesis. Make sure you identify this clearly first. Alright, so a command word here, discuss, tells you that there is an antithesis. Okay, it's not going to be useful. Okay, so we have thesis, useful, and antithesis, not useful. Alright, so if it is not useful, such questions will come out very common. If it is not useful, okay, what do you think they are asking out for? Okay, they are asking out for something else, right? There is not PED. Okay,
something else is more effective.
Exactly. So anything other than PED. So any other concepts, okay, that can maximize profit other than PED. Okay, so non-PED factor. So a lot of students, especially a lot of newbie students, okay, will miss out the antithesis. Okay, so don't be fooled by the question. It's never one-sided. Okay, if you illustrate the whole question from the perspective of elastic and inelastic, you get one side of the mark. Okay, so you have to illustrate both. Okay, I'll show you how the approach to the other one. But getting a framework is very important. Okay, so so having said that, okay, oh yes, another permutation. Please pen this down. Okay, so the more popular way these days to ask this question is comment. Okay, comment on the usefulness. It's the same approach. Okay, so pay attention. Whenever comment question comes out, it must have an antithesis.
Okay,
and the more modern ways these days is explain and comment. Okay, so they tell you explain how a retailer like Tiffany and Co. can use PED to maximize profit and comment on its usefulness. Okay, this is the more modern ways. Okay, so whatever they are asking, okay, pay attention to the word comment. Pay attention to the mark allocation. So long as the mark allocation is quite substantial, 4 marks to 6 marks, okay, you need an antithesis. Okay?
Okay.
So now let's quickly run through. So this question only requires you to identify one side of the PED. It can either be elastic or inelastic. I leave it to you how you want to justify. Okay, so now let's look at where are we going to get our PED factors. Okay, you can refer to our book. Okay, under elasticity concept. Okay, you can look out for page 12. Okay, I will be using pent, okay, and mince. So whatever that you state, make sure it must be a factor from here. Okay, so if you tell me that that your good is luxurious, right? Okay, PED is elastic because it takes up a huge proportion of income. Then what should the producer do? Okay, so the thesis itself, okay, is actually asking you or testing you on pricing strategy. Okay, remember it's pricing strategy. Okay, so another way to look at this, okay, the useful part or the PED part, okay, this is pricing strategy. Only PED will be looking at pricing strategy. Okay, so the antithesis or not useful part, if you are using non-PED factors, it will be, if my head is blocking, let me okay, yeah. It will be non-pricing strategy. Okay, non-pricing strategy. Alright, okay, so we can actually see that if we deem that Tiffany & Co. is selling luxurious good, is taking a huge proportion of income. Okay, PED is elastic. Then they should lower their price, right? Okay, this is what elasticity tells us. Okay, so when you lower your price, the quantity demanded will increase more than proportion. And this will maximize their revenue. So catch, PED can only address revenue. It cannot address profit. So if you use profit here, okay, I will cross one mark. Okay, because PED can only address revenue.
Okay.
Alright, now let's look at, okay, so if you illustrate that PED is inelastic, okay, make sure you come up with a determinant to substantiate that. Okay, I'm actually quite okay with how you want to play around with that. Okay, and if you state that it's inelastic, then you should what? Should raise price. Okay, because when you raise price, your quantity demanded will fall less than proportion. Okay, your total revenue will increase. Okay, so this is all pricing strategy. Okay, so up to 3 marks for the TCs. Okay, 2 marks. Okay, you can look out for anti-TCs. Okay, non-pricing strategies. Okay, so non-pricing strategies, I am actually pretty flexible. Okay, the easiest way, okay, is actually not what I've stated in the answer. Okay, is to look out for costs. Okay, any cost minimizing factors can work here very well. Okay, but the extract actually tells you something like, highly personalized whatever service. Okay, this could lead to a greater taste and preference towards such product. Okay, so this is a demand factor. Alright, so the overall arcing approach for the anti-thesis is non-PED. Okay, it can be a demand factor that increases the demand of the good, or a cost factor that reduces the cost. For my H2 students, you probably understand this better in firms and decision. Okay, when you lower your average cost. We don't need it here though. We don't need it here. Okay? So either of these factor, a cost or a demand factor will work. Alright, so synthesis. This cost factor will always have a synthesis. Okay, your stand. So overall, what is your take on PED? Okay, so you can see that PED may only be effective up to a certain extent. Okay, because your PED may be inaccurate or change over time. Okay, so it may be unreliable. Okay, total of 6 marks here. So you didn't flag this out as a concern. Okay, so I just intend to speed up. Okay, I want to move on to E and F. Every time when I have lecture tests, I always apologize because we always end late. So I hope today we can really end on time. So if you have any questions, you can probably ask me right after we end everything. Okay, so question E. Okay, just now I've actually gave you a heads up already. Okay, it is positive externalities. Okay, but you realize that it's objectives, not objective. Okay, so the bonus here is the objectives. The second objective is a macro objective. Okay, when you can put a star here. Next time when you revise, you can come back and you can relook into this extract. Okay, but I will just grade you upon 6 marks. Okay, for establishing one objective, which is positive externalities. Alright, so for my newer students, okay, I will show you a framework. Okay, for students who have been through the holiday program, I probably drilled you so much already, but for newer students who are watching this, okay, so listen carefully on what framework do we need. Okay, so first of all, we have to identify that, okay, it is positive externalities first. Okay, so based on the 3 keywords that we identify: underproduce, spillover, and underinvestment. Okay, part F also gave us some hints on how to tackle this. Alright, okay, so you want to identify that your R&D is a form of positive externality of production. So the keyword here is production. It's not positive externalities. Okay, because R&D must be a production-based positive externalities. So for positive externalities, 90% of the time, they are tested on consumption. Okay, so what are the consumption-based positive externalities? Healthcare, vaccines, okay, education, all these are consumption based. It's only production of R&D. Okay, there is production. So this is a really, really niche topic. Okay, so whoever that brings in consumption here, or who doesn't know consumption or production, okay, I will minus marks from here. Okay, so you must get this right. Okay, production or consumption is production. So these are third-party benefits. They are not accounted by the producers from the producer. So you must identify and define what is PEP here. Okay, I'll call this PEP. Okay, positive externality of production. Okay, so this is what we call step 1. Identifying and defining the source of market failure. Okay, so step number 2 is to explain or identify the source of external benefit. Right, so we identify that there's spillover effect, right? So what are the exact spillover effect? Okay, we can see that R&D can create a variety of spillovers that promote innovation, quality, skill acquisition, productivities in industries located nearby. Okay, they are not accounted by the producer themselves of R&D. Is it good? It's pretty good. Okay, but if you leave it to the producer to produce themselves, what do? Okay, so this is how step number 3 comes in. Rational decision-making framework. Sometimes I call this RDMF. So a rational producer, will choose to maximize profit by producing at MPC equals to MPB. I'm pretty sure your school uses the same approach. Right? Okay, so the catch here is to identify consumer and producer. It comes from step number 1. Okay, if you identify it wrongly, then in this case, your whole MPB and MPC will be quite off here because you will be using a consumer perspective. Consumer will only maximize their welfare. They will not be concerned about maximizing profit. Okay, so you must state the rationale of MPB equals to MPC. Why? Maximize profit. And contextualize. What is MPC? To produce R&D. Monetary and opportunity cost. What is the MPB for producing R&D? Revenue gain for producing an additional unit. Step 3. So every time when we look at externality questions, or externality questions, or even info failure, we can use these 6 steps really powerful. Step number 4, you can illustrate a diagram. Step 4. So this is where when I was browsing your script, I realized that the order of your diagram is not quite at the right place. It should be at the earlier part. But actually, drawing at the end is better than not drawing. Okay, so step number 5, you got to illustrate how underproduction arises. Okay, so the presence of the external benefit will lead to the divergence of your social benefit and your private benefit. Okay, and this will lead to, and referencing to the socially optimal level at MSC equals to MSB, or at QS, there will be an underproduction of the level QP and QS here. You can also label this in your diagram. Underproduction. So look out, especially if you use consumption. Every time I see consumption, I'll take away 1 mark. So this is step number 5. Illustrating the overconsumption. Underproduction. And step number 6, you got to illustrate how deadweight loss arise. So I'll probably spend a little bit time here because a lot of students are still not getting it right. Deadweight loss arises when society welfare is not maximized. Society welfare is not maximized when you are not producing at MSP equals to MSC. So there will only be one point where society welfare is maximized, which is here. MSB equals to MSC. So you're obviously not producing here. So where are you producing? You're underproducing. On the left hand side of QS. So we are interested to find out at your present production level at QP, Okay, what is the gap between your MSB and your MSC? Okay, so we can see that your marginal social benefit exceeds your marginal social cost. Okay, do you see the gap here? So what does it tell you? Okay, you have to explain this in words. When your MSB exceeds MSC, obviously society welfare is not maximized. Okay, but to be more precise, okay, it tells you that when you produce an additional R&D, that the society benefits that you gain exceeds the society cost you incur. Okay, and this is the reason why there is inefficient allocation of resource. Okay, and this results in a deadweight loss. Okay, so remember to illustrate, okay, using the marginalist principle, okay, where MSB is not equal to MSC. Then you need to find out which one is higher. Okay, this is step number 6. Okay, so I hope you have a snapshot of these 6 steps. Okay, so I'm not sure whether we'll be coming back to externality anytime soon, because we are going to move on to macro really soon. Okay, so this is probably one of the last few times that we will be looking at externalities. Alright.
Okay.
Good. Okay, are we good with question E?
Yeah.
Alright, there's also a hidden objective. Okay, so normally 6 marks I will give these 6 steps will give you 6 marks. Okay, but this question has a bonus objective. Okay, so the bonus objective is actually a macro goal, okay, called potential growth. Okay, so if you did not illustrate this, I think it's fine that I'll award you the 6 marks, all based on positive externalities. Okay, but do note that macro objectives can come in like that. Okay, so make a mental note. Okay, when you're revising for potential growth. Okay, so a quick side note. Some of the schools uses this diagram to illustrate positive externalities. Okay, a divergence of your cost curve. Still better, stick to your school. Okay, so your homework today is to check your school. Check. Okay, so there will be a few approaches. Okay, some schools don't segment between positive externalities of consumption or positive externalities of production. They lump it with the same diagram. Okay, which is the approach that we used earlier. Okay, I believe this was RI. Okay, so schools like RI, they will differentiate between the two. Okay, so I would like you to check. Okay, if you're RI definitely use this. Okay, but I'm not sure which are the other schools that use that. Okay, make sure you check. Don't use the wrong one. Stick to your school. Okay, last one. Ready to go? Maybe you will share with me how do you approach this question.
I first talked about, I only talked about tax incentives. Yeah.
Alright, so how does a tax incentive work?
I said that the tax incentive is like a subsidy, works like a subsidy.
Very good.
Which will correct the underproduction of the R&D, as it will bring the MPC to QS at socially optimal level to achieve allocative efficiency.
So the missing concept is positive externalities, right?
Yeah.
Do you mention this in your script?
No.
Alright, so all along your awareness of this concept is there. Okay, just that you're not precise enough. Okay, so the next time when you approach this, when you are confronted with the word under, then the concept of positive externalities must come out. Okay, on the contrary, if it is over-consumed or overproduced, then negative externalities. Okay, so got to be precise. So you'll be marked down, okay, if you don't state clearly what is the source of allocative inefficiency. Okay, in this case, it's positive externalities. There are multiple sources of allocative inefficiency. Okay, so externality is one, public good is another. There's a lot more. Okay, so you got to be specific. But I'm really happy that you identify tax credit. Okay, so tax credit acts like a form of a subsidy here. Okay, you can see here. R&D tax credit. Alright, so The reverse of this, okay, so some of the extracts are quite tricky. Okay, so they'll illustrate removing of a subsidy. Okay, the removing of a subsidy will work like a tax. Okay, so make sure you are familiar with how the words are actually coined here. Alright, so I'll quickly run through. Okay, I'm happy that you actually identify the correct policy, but you only brought up one. Okay, there's one more. Okay, there's actually a few more. Okay, I'll just quickly run through. Okay, because this wasn't flagged out as the concern question. Okay, so the whole idea behind this is tied to question E. Okay, so these two are brother and sister questions. Make sure you identify the correct problem first. Okay, so you can realize that, okay, question E is about positive externalities. So question F is about policies to address underproduction. Okay, so what are the policies that are present? So you can see that there's tax incentive. It works like a subsidy. Alright, so the keywords here, okay, so check whether your keywords are there. Okay, by providing a tax incentive, I'm so sorry, there's a very important keyword that I forgot. Equivalent to the external benefit. Okay, the keyword here, equivalent, is exceptionally crucial. Okay, this will work like a subsidy. Okay, so this will lower the marginal cost of production of R&D. This will cause your MPC curve to shift to the right. Make sure you use the correct framework. A lot of students still use the demand and supply framework, okay, which is incorrect. It must be compatible with positive externality framework that we have used earlier on. So it's a rightward shift. Okay, your MPC curve shift to the right. Okay, so the tax incentive, okay, will cause the producers to internalize the external benefits of R&D. Okay, and they will increase their production to the socially optimal level. Okay, and they will eliminate the deadweight loss. Okay, and they will restore allocative efficiency. So these are some of the keywords that we often use for subsidy and tax. Okay, a limitation. However, the challenges would be for the government to accurately estimate the grants and R&D. Right? Yeah, on top of that, okay, there's a budget constraint. Okay, so if the government spends more on subsidies, on tax credit, okay, they will have to incur a higher debt. Okay, or they may have to incur a higher opportunity cost. Okay, they have to cut spending elsewhere. Okay. So the second policy, don't stop at one. Okay, policy question is more likely to be like, like a child-based question. Stop at 2 or more. But in this case, 8 marks, 2 is enough. Okay, you can look at, the extract actually mentioned the immigration of high-skilled scientists and researchers. Right? Okay, of course, I think there's one more called IP, or I'm not sure. Okay, I'll put it under the appendix. Okay, you can take a look. Okay, so the approach for this is fairly similar. Okay, so you can look at grooming local talents. Okay, and this will actually address the shortage of talents in the sector. Okay, and you can see that when your talent pool actually expands, okay, this will lower the cost of production. So the whole idea is to relate back to the earlier diagram here. Right? Okay, so you can see lower wages. When your talent pool expands, this will exert a downward pressure on your wages. The cost of production of R&D is going to go down. Okay, so make sure you relate to the correct framework, okay, because the question necessitates how do we correct the underproduction. Okay, so we don't need to illustrate the full process again, it's pretty much understood. Okay, so all you need to do is identify that once you identify the root problem is a shortage of talent, okay, with a bigger talent pool, okay, this will lower the wage pressure, okay, and in terms of lower cost of production. So firms will experience a fall in MPC, from MPC to the right, okay, and you will produce more, okay, at a socially optimal level. No need to repeat again, it's the same process. Limitation, okay, every policy question must tie in with a limitation, very crucial. Okay, so you can see that it takes a long time for the impact of this policy to be fully felt, okay, or you can talk anything that illustrates the constraint of time period, or any attempt to illustrate. Okay, so if you have any things that they are not sure about how to critique or how to limit or to establish your limitation, you can ask me right at the end. Okay, or PM me. Alright, so overall, okay, if you were to weigh between these two policies, okay, we can see that, okay, depending on time period, okay, which one is faster? Okay, R&D is faster. Okay, so remember when we build a synthesis, okay, the last 2 marks down here, okay, is to weigh out, okay, which policy do you think is better? What criteria, okay, based on that you're basing on? So based on time period, okay, you can see that R&D is faster. Then we can see more immediate results. Okay, another key criteria that you want to look at is what's the root cause of the underinvestment. Okay, so you can see that other policies such as definition and enforcing of IP will be required. Okay, because although there is underinvestment, but if you're not protecting the intellectual rights, okay, producers, even if you give them a subsidy, okay, you know that there's a pirate that's going to hijack your whole idea and produce it somewhere else. Would you still invest your R&D even though you receive a subsidy? Unlikely, right? Okay, so you need to be adequately feel protected first. Okay, so what's the root cause of the problem? Okay, so lastly, the US needs to continue to US government needs to continue to influence and inculcate a continued desire of firms part to promote innovative activity. Sure. All right. Okay, so I have come up with another point. Okay, look at how to strengthen IP. Okay, this is an alternate point. Okay, I don't find that it is as good as the second point on the talent pool, because the talent pool address cost and wages more effectively. Okay, the IP side, I find it hard to relate to the positive externality approach. Okay, but feel free to surprise me. Right? Okay, so with this, okay, I'm going to come to the end of the session. So, if you have any questions for me, okay, please stay back and ask. Okay, if not, okay, I'm going to stop recording.